It's been a month since Lorcana was released, and everybody wants to know now, after having time for the dust to settle, is Lorcana still a disaster?
This is the intro for the Hatcher show. He didn't want to do nothing, so he's standing there.
Hello, my friends! I hope you're having a good day. We have gathered to discuss the situation surrounding Lorcana. There was a ton of interest in my previous Lorcana is a Disaster video. Basically, that video went over all the different production and distribution issues that the game was suffering from. But people want to know, is the game itself doing well now after a month of dealing with that? Or is the game a full-on disaster that can be written off and forgotten about? Well, Lorcana has made a huge impact in the game world when it comes to gauging new card games. Because you have to understand, I've been in the card game world for 30 years. I literally couldn't count the number of card games that I've seen birthed and flicker into obscurity. And so as you watch this happen, it's almost like you're one of those dudes in the war movies. This new guy gets down in the trench beside you and you're like, don't even tell me your name, bro. You're not gonna be alive in 30 seconds. That is the mentality that I ended up developing with TCG. So I have a number of different indicators that I look at to determine whether a game has what it takes to stick around. You've got big presence, little presence, that's big stores and little stores. You have player sentiment and secondary market values and engagement. Those are some of the factors. There's some other ones as well, but those are the ones that I want to focus on mostly here because Lorcana has definitely made big waves and its presence is being felt in a whole number of different places. Now, let's start by talking about player sentiment. Player sentiment towards Lorcana is mostly overwhelmingly good. So the people who are playing it seem to be having a really good time with it. On top of that, you have the level of engagement with like demographics that Wizards of the Coast specifically, because I deal with Magic a lot, so I think of things through that prism. But Wizards of the Coast would love to have Lorcana's demographics. When I've gone out to the game stores and seen people playing, which I've seen multiple times, you're seeing a good mix of men and women, which is not something you normally get in the TCG world out at actual game stores. Sure, at home, people playing with their wives, their girlfriends, everything like that, yeah. But game store environments plus the card game world together mostly haven't led to a lot of ladies wanting to be there. I'm sure you guys probably have been at like Magic events or something like that and seen the awkward interactions that happen to the women who are forced into playing these games against people who are just like, oh, I'm so happy to talk to a lady, right? It's a different kind of vibe. The whole Lorcana setup doesn't have that going on. It has a reach into men, women, and children. You can get the whole family thing going on. And part of that boils down to the Disney side of it, where it's like, check it out. People love Disney properties. Part of it boils down to the way less competitive nature of the game. If you compare it to more competitive games like Magic, basically the Lorcana goes like this. Wait until your turn to do stuff, okay? You have your turn, I have mine. Also, we're not really going to hurt each other. You can smash up my little dudes, but we can't actually hurt each other. We're just in a race to see who can get to 20. It's funny how you can take 20 and make it the target you're building towards, or 20 the target you're taking away from in terms of life loss, and it will fundamentally change the flavor of the game. So Lorcana is more of a casual game overall, and that's its strength. Yes, it is going to drive away people who want more complexity, but those people are already well served by TCGs that offer that level of complexity, right? So you got Magic. I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, but I've seen the amount of crap they cram onto a card. That's very complex. I don't actually know the complexity level of games like Pokemon, though. I presume, I mean, considering how long it's been around and all the different abilities, there's got to be a fair bit of complexity. But Lorcana is straightforward. put out your dudes, try and get the lore, and if you want to mess with your opponent's dudes, you can mess with your opponent's dudes. You don't have a lot to deal with, you don't have a complex resource system. The cards in your hands can essentially be played as the lands that generate the resource to cast your guy. So you've got simplicity. So in terms of engagement, you've got a good level of engagement. The one game store that I'm using as my main indicator of what's going on with the small local game stores, well, they've actually had more people coming out for Lorcana than Magic's had for its standard events. Because Magic right now has made some really big mistakes with its organized play and bringing people in. And Lorcana was smart. They made sure that any game store that was going to run organized gameplay got Lorcana. Now, they didn't give them an endless amount. There were obviously chokeholds in the supply, but they made sure to give these game stores Lorcana. And I have seen a returning player base week after week after week. It's been a month now. If somebody does something for like 3 weeks, that becomes a habit. So playing Lorcana for a month, that's starting to get entrenched, right? So you have that going on. On top of that, in terms of single sales, I was genuinely surprised because you see the Lorcana singles are actually taking up display case space. And that's not usually what happens with new games. Like Flesh and Blood, all right, you're not getting any new display case area. MetaZoo, all these new Johnny-come-lately games, they're sitting there. Maybe some stores have some singles or whatever, but I'm not really seeing those making their way into the display case. Lorcana has muscled its way into the display cases right away. And on top of that, the cards have actual velocity. There's a huge difference between cards sitting under the glass going, I'm worth this, and somebody actually going, I'll pay this. So when it comes down to it, I have seen people purchase Mickey Mouse cards for $50. We're talking Canadian price tag. $50 single. Somebody came in and bought a Mickey Mouse for $50, okay? And then the next week, another Mickey was put out for $55 and it sold, right? Like this is a huge, like when it comes to secondary markets, it's one of the big things for card games now because people are incredibly unfair to new card games. And they basically just look and go, look, if I play this game, if I go and buy a booster pack of Magic cards, there's a chance my cards will have some value. When I choose to exit out of the game, I can reclaim some of that value. I can trade these cards in for more value, right? So people need to see a healthy secondary market before they're willing to try your game. That's one of the things to look for. Some people. Other people will look for a player base that's engaged and playing. Lorcana's pulled it all off super fast. Like big names in the Magic card game industry. We're talking things like Star City Games, who at one point were the de facto king of Magic singles, right? They are doing onboarding for their Lorcana buy lists. That is another huge indicator for me. When the big, because I talked about the littles and the bigs, right? When the big boys are going, yo, not only do we sell this, we're actively buying these singles. That shows that the market is healthy enough that they're willing to take the risk on bringing in inventory because they got to put the money out in the first place, get the cards in, and that hope that somebody will buy them. So Star City's not the only one getting into this as well, right? Lorcana has made big waves. Now, that doesn't automatically mean the game will have long-term legs. We're just looking at it right now, viewing it through the prism of, is this disaster level? What are the signs? Is it strong? And it is putting up a bunch of strong indicators overall. Like, there are definitely some things that can trip Lorcana up. One being, it depends on how long Disney is willing to be a part of this, because at the end of the day, Disney isn't technically the ones making these cards. It's Ravensburger. So as long as Disney is willing to give them the IP and let them use it, then this can continue to flow, right? There are endless properties that can be capitalized on for Disney, not just the animated characters, but you can move out into their Marvel, their Star Wars. It might be a little jarring, so I'm not sure exactly what the overlap is. They made a right choice in terms of choosing to nostalgia mine to start with, where it's like, okay, let's hit some stuff the kids are going to know with the earlier, like not earlier, but more recent stuff like Elsa and Maui, the characters that I don't really know. But then they also hit the old characters that people like me do know. The original Lion King, Ariel from The Little Mermaid, that Mickey with the shears, the one who goes up and messes with the giants, that stuff, it's genuinely cool, right? So at this point, Lorcana has established a presence. Stores are willing to buy list their stuff. They're willing to bring it in on the bigger level. Even actually, speaking of which, the game store that I've been using as like my heartbeat for local game stores, it ended up going through so many of their singles that they're like, okay, we're actually going to just order a lot on eBay just to get some more cards in, just so we have whatever. Like, they had no commons and uncommons for anybody. They were all gone. All they had was a handful of rares left in the display case, and they're scrabbling to get more. Now, that's an actual problem for Lorcana that they do need to be aware of. If they can't manage to get the supply out there, people will go, well, if everyone's clamoring to get it, that's got to be a good thing. If people can't get it, they won't play, right? They'll play it first, but you need novelty. The truth about card games is you have to constantly have newness coming in. You can't just be like, hey, I'm going to put out a set once a year, that'll be fine. That's not really going to get you very far in the TCG world if you want to be a real player. If you want to be like a side niche game that has a dedicated following, you want to be like Weeb Schwarz or whatever, then you can do fewer releases. But if you want to be on the big boy level, you have to come in at the big boy level. And Lorcana is doing a good job in that regard. They already have their second set announced, and it's coming out basically around the same time as Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So they're kind of timing it for the same time as Magic stuff, which is an interesting play. I don't know if that's on purpose, but the word is spreading really fast because I think it was the day those sets were announced. I was standing in the local game store and a dude walks right in, right up to the counter. He didn't wander around doing this, I'm going to pretend I'm humming and hawing. He had a mission, and his mission was to pre-order the new Lorcana set. Like, that is not something I am used to seeing with new games, okay? I'm used to seeing pre-orders if it's a game like Force of Will, for example, at the game store I went to. You had to pre-order Force of Will because not enough people bought it, so it wasn't worth the store's like plans to bring it in. It's not worth our money. We buy this, we bring it in, nobody's buying it, it sits on the shelf, we have to discount it. So you have to pre-order just to guarantee it'll show up. With Lorcana, it's the complete opposite. This game is such the hotness right now that you literally are running and trying to pre-order months in advance to get ahead of the trends. Now, it is impossible to see exactly where the line that delineates true demand from speculative demand, and by that I mean you can't tell how many people are out there snatching up boxes to try and flip and resell them. And that happens with every card game now, it seems. Like, everything has this big speculative boom. And one of the things that really added on to that was there was this Pokemon craze. You may or may not have noticed it on YouTube, where like a gigantic, mega gigantic YouTuber started mucking about with Pokemon cards and going, check it out, they're worth a bunch of money. And so all of a sudden people are flooding stores, buying up all this Pokemon stuff. They're literally fighting each other in the aisles, like adults fighting each other in the aisles to get Pokemon stuff to flip it online or to crack themselves and grade. The grading of cards got so crazy that I have seen like Pokemon foils that literally look like somebody took a metal Brillo pad, like it's like a rated 3. They've gotten like scuffed to infinity foils graded. So the card game world has gone absolutely insane. And at first, that's what made it very difficult to even get a feel for what's going on with Lorcana. But at this point, looking at the indicators that I like to, the secondary market is genuine. People are buying cards at the local game store level. The big stores are going, yeah, we'll buy it, send it on into us. We can sell this, no problem. That's a great indicator. You've got a sustained player base that's going to the local game store week after week. If you didn't know, I just put out a video today on my other channel, The Magic Historian, where I focus on Magic the Gathering, talking about how Wizards has just renewed their focus on local game stores because they realize how important they are. And so Lorcana's already in there. They've actually just been eating Magic the Gathering's lunch for the last month, just sitting at the table going, thanks, buddy, I love this. That's the vibe. So Lorcana is hitting the right notes. They've got people engaged who are willing to return to play. They've got what appears to be a thriving secondary market that sprung up overnight. I don't know how much speculation's going on, but the people who are buying the singles are people who are buying them to play with them. And that crazy foil that I cracked when I opened that box of Lorcana previously on this channel, that sold too. Somebody came to buy the Mega Ultra Insano foil for hundreds of dollars. So secondary market checks out, gameplay checks out, they got cards keep coming in. So at this point, I will say Lorcana is not a disaster. It is a genuine contender that has the ability to stick around. And honestly, the biggest problem I see for the game going forwards is Disney not letting Ravensburger keep the IP or Ravensburger making some greedy choice. But right now, they're bang on doing it just right. So Lorcana gets the double thumbs up. Thanks for coming by and hearing what I have to say, my friends. I'll be live streaming here later today. If you want to come by and say hello, you're welcome to do so. Have yourself a good one.